And we are back. And if you're joining us right now, we're just getting our second conversation for this morning started. And we're talking all about a super exciting new site, the WIT, Turneffe. And here to talk to us all about that, we've got in our studio Valdemar Andrade, who is the Executive Director of TASA, as well as Garen Simonian, who is the Director of the Blackbird Key Resort. And we also have joining us via Zoom Damien Goff, Project Director of the OIC, as well as Claudio Brandiglione, who is the Regional Director of PADI Central America. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good morning.
Yeah, and
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. This is a super interesting project that we are here to talk about this morning. So why don't we give a little bit of history for our viewers about how this came to be?
Okay, sure. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, the Turneffe Sustainability Association was in the media about an impact investment that we had secured of 1.2 million US between grants and loans to be able to put in place products in the Turneffe Marine Reserve to generate revenues, because they, in the discussions with our stakeholders there, which include the tourism stakeholders, fishing stakeholders, and the general public, it takes about 1.3 to 2 million Belize dollars, 1.3 basic management costs and $2 million optimal management costs per annum to be able to manage the reserves. And this is the case for all marine reserves across the country. Generally, we run on grants. The issue with grants is that they're dwindling. Also, they take some time to secure, between 6 months to 24 months. So having consistent management is a struggle, because the grants may not come in at the time that you have the different challenges and management opportunities that you need to take advantage of. And so it's always a struggle. You always have a deficit instead of a surplus. And so we have been looking at how do we pioneer a blended finance approach to be able to manage these reserves. I think not many people understand that we are a natural resource-based economy, and that the protected areas basically are the backbone of that natural resource-based economy. Turneffe alone is $500 million to the economy annually. $380 million from shoreline protection. We have 11,000 hectares of mangroves that protect generally Belize City and surrounds from hurricanes and storms. We also have $151,000 in tourism. We have another $5 to $7 million in fishing, conch, lobster, and finfish. We don't have an estimate for the deep sea fishing. We have an estimated $7 million in blue carbon from those same mangroves. So you can see that one protected area alone is generating that amount. So we have to have the wherewithal and the facilities to be able to create the revenues, to be able to protect these areas and to manage them, because they create ecosystem and economic resilience. And right now, it's all about ecosystem and economic resilience. We are hanging in a balance here with the COVID situation. Mm-hmm. What COVID has taught us is that we have to create resilient ways of doing this. And so this is how this project was a part of the business plan that was created during COVID. Actually, we culminated a business plan in November of 2020, and the sinking of a ship, or a shipwreck, or an artificial reef was basically a part of the plan. But when we put it as a second-tier option, because of the cost that it would have in terms of putting it to reality. However, we got a call one day from the Port Authority asking us for technical advice of how they could decommission the wet concrete. The challenge with the wet concrete in decommissioning it is that it is 90% concrete, right? So it's a big block of concrete. Now, if you were small and tell you could build a concrete ship, you would have said, no, there's no way you can build a concrete ship, right? 12 of these were built during World War II. Yeah. They were built in approximately 2 months, and they have some history. But for us, there's also a history with respect to our sugar industry, and I'll let Damien speak more about that, because he's more conversant with that. That's why he's the project manager, because he's been dealing with this ship for over 15 years, right? So in decommissioning the ship, we one of the questions that Port Authority and Coast Guard had, because that ship was donated to them to have an on-water base. But because of the COVID situation, the budget was not there. So they asked us about what we could do, or how we could advise them to best decommission the ship. Could we choose a site? I said, well, we can find a site in Turneffe because we want it as a revenue generation option. And so based on that, we began to do, so we had to first look at it, what condition it is in, whether it is recoverable, whether it is appropriate to put into the site. We hadn't had the conversation with our resort owners yet, so we reached out to all the resort owners, all the tourism stakeholders, our different line agencies and line ministries, because we operate under the Ministry of the Blue Economy and Civil Aviation and the Fisheries Department. So we had to reach out to them to say, is this something you would entertain? What would be so we reached out to the Department of Environment. What would it take to do this? So we found out that we had to get a permit under the dumping at sea law, and it required us to deal with all hazardous material, and then we started adding up what it would cost, and it's it is costing quite a bit, but we got generally a good reaction. And Garen, representing the tourism industry in general, all the stakeholders were in agreement that we could do this, but it is how we do it. I can tell you the first time Andrew Brathwaite from Blue Finance, who is our key collaborator on this, put this to us as a business option, I was like, this is Belize. We have natural reef. We have natural reef. Yeah. I mean, why would we do this? I mean, and this will bring up a lot of environmental questions. I mean, I'm an environmentalist. Why? And then I started to research, and I started to look at the feasibility of doing this, both from a conservation environmental impact perspective, that it could add to the enhancement of the area, because you can possibly do some coral restoration at certain depths, if possible, right? So this is something we still have to work on, but it is possible. We also looked at, okay, it can become a fishing aggregation device. It will become a fishing aggregation device, because anything you put down there becomes, it aggregates the fish. But when you look at the economic impacts in counties in the US, in the Caribbean where it has been done, you're looking that you're generating some serious heads in beds, and you're also generating, when we did the feasibility, it would raise our revenues by 30 to 40%. It can be more depending on the COVID situation, and that's why it is important that we manage that situation. So that is the general background on this. It has taken, I have to say, it has taken a lot of collaboration, a lot of innovation, a lot of science background, a lot of hard questions, looking at yourself, looking at what we do, because we're in conservation, right?
There's so much to unpack from what you just said, but let me start with what I think was one of the first questions that came to mind. As a destination that primarily sells our natural environment, when I heard of this project, I was like, well, what are we going to do? Sink cities next? Like what we know in the Caribbean, they're putting together these faux settings for people to go and dive and see. From your perspective, with the visitors that do come, I mean, what do you think is the added value here of having the sunken ship?
So, to take 1 second, if there was a way we could sink a city in a way that would not harm the environment or affect the reef or the ocean life, every single water-based tourist in the world would come.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, divers are an adrenaline rush. They're out for the activity. When you go reef diving, especially here in Belize, it's an amazing experience. When you have something you can also explore, right? Humans by nature are curious and they love to explore new things. If you've ever gone hiking or any of these trails, you see something a little bit outside, you're going to take the second to go do that. When you have the ability to explore a 400-foot cargo ship, and then you find out it's made of concrete, which will become, a substrate and a base for coral growth and coral transport, that really calls to all divers. If you haven't gone diving before, you may not understand that nuance of it, but the minute you get yourself in the water and all of the noise from above disappears and you become one with the ocean, those type of things become very, very important. And as you go down and you start to explore and you see, large fish, small fish, something you may not have seen before that's hiding in a corner or that has made that its home, it's an experience you never forget. That is what draws tourism back to Turneffe. That'll bring brand new tourism sector to Belize, especially in the diving community. It'll also bring divers who have never been in the water before. because sometimes people need a little bit of a push
Yeah.
to be like, well,
Didn't think
it's
about
coral
diving,
and
but let me
fish,
go
right?
see the ship.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
but there's a ship and it's made of concrete from World War II.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to add to that, I mean, if you remember, I did a 5 years in tourism, you know, and I learned quite a lot in, you know, the fact that while we were doing this for Turneffe and we were driving revenue Turneffe, this is a pilot for the entire marine protected area system, but also you have to learn how to align a major product with the national image, with the national product. We are in a COVID situation where we need to now look at whoever is going to travel, we need to be able to grab their attention. So we need to grab a big segment of the attention of those travelers that are going to travel anyway. And so we are looking at how do we create a product that does that? How do we align it and ensure that whatever product we are putting in is going to still keep with the conservation image, is still going to keep with ensuring that we are within that ambit, but also creates a one-up on the rest of the world. There is no other product that's going to be at DEMA this year, at the dive show, right? And so if you look at our numbers and statistics from the BTB, 60 to 70% of the people coming here come to the marine environment. You know, a big segment of that is diving, and I think Claudio can talk a little bit to
Definitely.
how that plays into the region and what potential that has. From discussions with Claudio from PADI, we are looking to create a special certification for the width, right? Which is going to give Belize another one up in terms of the dive, the whole dive segment, you know. And so that's going to be in magazines, that's going to be in social media, that's PADI is going to promote that because, of course, you're driving that industry. So maybe Claudio can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So this
Just
is
wanted to quickly add, if you all would allow me, one of the big upsides to this thing as well, too quickly. We're taking something, there's nowhere in Belize that ship could have been disposed of, could have been decommissioned. And because it's made of concrete and it will serve as a natural foundation for coral to grow on, one of the most distinctive qualities, attributes of Belize is our Great Barrier Reef. But Valdemar can tell you, and the scientists can tell you, that there is already some reef deterioration going on. There's coral bleaching, etc. This is a first of its kind historic endeavor to try to rebuild and restore some of that natural asset that we already have. So it has also to be looked at from that perspective as well.
Yeah. And I want to come back to that because that is a critical point. Reef restoration is something that is being attempted, I know, in the north as well. And it is not as easy as people think it is. It's not like planting a seed and, you know, you have a tree. But let's get Claudio into the conversation for a second. Claudio, will this now become one of the must-dos for diving in the region?
That's for sure. That's one of the most, what will be one of the most important wrecks around the region in the Caribbean. And they will attract many divers. We are, as Valdemar just said, we are trying to put together, we are putting together, by the way, a specialty just for the weak country. So everybody that's going to come in here will get certified on that will honor also the people who like Damien and all the other people that worked in the project, as well as their history and the hard work to make it happen. And obviously this is a unique wreck, but as Garen just said, because due to made of concrete, that there is no structure like that in all over the Caribbean and all over this part of the world. So this will attract many divers. In past experience, we have been seeing that artificial wrecks have been attracting tremendous potential for the next 3 or 4 years. So this is very good for all the local operations as well as hotels and other related services.
Nice. And when you talk about a specialized certification process, what would that entail?
This will be training on the with concrete that will not only will be a wreck diving specialty course, that you provide knowledge to get not only outside but inside the wreck as well, but also about their history and all the labor involved. And maybe we're talking to Valdemar, they can take part of the conservancy project that is involved, not only the wreck itself, but afterwards, how we're going to be managed.
And you know, one of the things that usually comes to mind, I suppose, when talk about development of projects like this is also sort of the impact that it might have. If you know, we do want something like this to, of course, be successful, but that comes with its own challenges as well.
Sure.
So has that that assessment already been done, and what are we thinking about to make sure that this is like a sustainable project?
Sure. I mean, I think that's an excellent question. You know, yeah, and yes, we have. I mean, from the beginning to the end. You know, the two most important part of the sustainability of this, in terms of the environmental considerations, was the site selection, and then making sure that the ship is as clean as it can be, right? Because you're the last thing you want, because you know, as you can, you know, the last thing you want to see is that anybody thinks that you're, you know, really dumping garbage in the sea when you're putting this ship down, right? So in terms of the site selection, again, we reached out to the resorts, because they're the ones diving the entire area, asking them, you know, what sites would you recommend? So Turneffe Island Resort, Turneffe Flats, Dive Haven, and Blackbird Key recommended their sites. And we narrowed all those site selection, and the aggressor as well. The aggressor live aboard, because they also use Turneffe 2 days a week, you know. So they looked at the sites. We narrowed it down to 4 sites. Then we had technical experts dive those sites to be able to look at it, because we were looking at a minimum of 500 feet of sandy area, because this ship is 375 feet long. We were looking at a minimum width of 250 feet. So it was difficult to find that within the 4 selected areas. And areas we have to look at current, we have to look at different safety features in terms of the area. We also had to look at the depth of the area. We had to ensure that we wouldn't create any harm to any coral ecosystems, any other ecosystem, any major harm, because again, there's nothing that
There'll be some displacement.
Exactly, there will be some displacement. You know, even within the soil, there are organisms within the sand, you know, believe it or not. But so we took all of those things into consideration so when we applied to the department, they gave us, this is what you need to do in the study, this is what you need to address. So we looked at that, we did the transects, the diving, we look at the coral, we look at fishes, we look at the marine conditions, we look at everything in the area to be able to ensure that. Then with respect to the ship, the most important part of it was ensuring that all the hazardous material comes off. Now, when I did the research, I was like, okay, when I say
when you say clean it, I'm thinking, what do you have to clean from the ship?
So, you know, when you read at some of the old ships, you know, they have from asbestos so then I started like getting like, okay, let's see what the ship has, right? Fortunately for us, the 2 major hazardous materials, and again, Damien can talk best to this, because he's the one that ensured that all the scrubbing was done, you know, was oils, and there was asphalt that was put on the deck of the ship, right? Right? And so, you know, I have a full matrix here of all the cleaning that has been done in terms of timber, plastics, and other loose items, electrical lighting and fixtures, hatch covers and doors to protect the safety of the so the contaminants, anchor chain, you know, removal of used oil and from the anchor chain, locker valves and piping, because believe it, some of the piping, you know, there's old piping, so we have to check if it doesn't have asbestos or has any other material. Unfortunately, we didn't have any of that. Engine and power rooms, asphalt, the asphalt deck, as I mentioned before. You know, so and Damien can speak best to what we took off of there. Just to, you know, for me as a conservationist, this is a very reputational issue for our organization and for any organization involved in it, including the tourism industry. You know, they don't want any outfall at all. So
I hear you. I hear where you're
We have
outlining the
look,
due diligence that you've
Let me
done.
tell you, I won't sleep until we are finished.
Well, let me get Damien into the conversation
Sure.
here, because I also think that it's it's a sustainability issue that's key here. And you talked about something, I think, that's really gone under the radar through this pandemic, where source funding is drying up for a lot of NGOs. And so looking at alternative ways of earning a revenue is key, and being very innovative in that matter. So Damien, why don't you chime in on that point?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. One of the points that came up yesterday at the launch, a bit of of offside discussion, was that this is a major positive in every way that you can look, amidst the backdrop of COVID and downturn in economy and all of that sort of thing. This is going immediately. I think Lamar mentioned yesterday that there are like 18 tour operators that are going to be able to take full advantage of this as soon as the tourism season opens back up. Remember, there are 4 or 5 resorts on Turneffe that will immediately benefit from visitors and guests, and then you have other trickle-overs, because it's not only just those 18 tourism operations that already use it, but more people, more operations. So it is, and Valdemar can speak more to that. They have an actual management plan of how many people per day they will allow to go in, so it's not overused. How you grow that gradually, what other infrastructure you have to put into it. So it's something that is being looked at as bringing a lot of positive energy, a lot of positive effort. It's been 90%, 95% a wholly Belizean brain thrust effort. On the groundwork has been 100% Belizean.
Yeah.
We've had a workforce, overall workforce of somewhere around 32 people over the last few weeks, doing all the breaking and demolition from Cantos Demolition Services, doing all the hazmat stuff from Greenwave Industries, boat transfers from Guerreros. That's a lot of the positive that has come into it.
Yeah.
Just during a time when activity has been kind of slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just to add that, in terms of the 4 resorts and the 18 operators, you're talking at least 1,000 people there. But Garen can talk about the interest he's been having already from divers, because the diving community, let me tell you, with the Aggressor Liver Board, for example, through the entire COVID, they have remained filled. I had asked for our business developer to go on board, but she hasn't been able to go on board because they have been fully booked. And this is all diving, and 90% of the business on Turneffe is diving.
Yeah.
I don't know, Garen, if you can talk a little bit about
there's probably no COVID on the water, so it's a safe place to go. Come on over there.
Let's hope that never happens, right? I can't imagine the fish wearing masks all day. That'd be a funny image. Just taking a quick second to kind of address this as well.
Yeah.
I think the individuals most concerned about the shipwreck, oddly enough, are the dive resort operators, right? I mean, it's going to be in the waters in front of Blackbird Key, and we really care how this is done.
Yeah.
As much of a pull for tourism this will be for all of Turneffe and all of the diving operations that'll come out there to do the dives, it has to be done properly. Everything in the reports look wonderful. It's being done to US EPA standards, which is exceptional. So I've walked that ship a few times, and everything looks great. You can scrape the floors, everything looks good. As far as tourism excitement right now, I mean, the phones are, the term ringing off the hook to come see the wet concrete is accurate.
Yeah.
I would imagine not just for the resorts on Turneffe, but all of the other resorts in San Pedro, the Aggressor, the phone calls should start coming. And if you haven't started marketing it, you should let everybody know that this is what's coming to Belize.
So can we talk about some fun stuff now here too? So first of all, it's still above water. You're talking about a sunken ship, but it's above water.
Yes.
What's the deal?
All right. So, so what happened is that it's a process, right?
Yeah.
So, as a part of the process, the first process is that Damien gave me his report to say we're done. Then
It's clean.
it's clean by his standards. So then I fly in my expert from Miami, Joe
Yeah.
Weatherby, to say yes, this is acceptable. And Garen was on that visit along with the Department of Environment,
Correct.
who has the final say in saying.
Is this
yeah,
the picture of the clean version?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So who has the final say? And this is without, as you can see, it has no rails. All the metal has, most of the metal has come off. So we have also gotten that approval from the Department of Environment that it is to standard in terms of because everything has to come off. Nothing can float back up when there are any oil, any plastics, any debris, any. So that's what Damien is tasked with this week, to ensure that all the little things come off, even from the little straps for the pipes. All of that has to be off because it can hook on lines for the divers. So everything is has to be as best as possible. That we can get it, and then there's a whole day of towing. So as Damien can tell you, that sounds easy. But in Belize, to get the right equipment has been a challenge, and the only equipment that we can get is from the Big Creek port. So they have the biggest tugs, but we have to schedule them. So we have been negotiating back and forth to schedule them, and right now our best guess is that it will be on the 20th of September. So how fitting, right?
Right, there you go.
So for Independence Day, it should be down. It should be in the water. So it should be
you're
down on the
going to
20th.
physically sink the ship.
The ship.
And so what that process will include is that just now from the aerial shot of the vessel, we're paying detailed attention. You would have seen along that external hull facing you some small squares. Those are actually squares that we 4x4 cutout windows that we've cut holes in the hull of the vessel. That's going to serve two purposes. One, when we start pre-filling the cargo compartments with water, as soon as the vessel gets down to that level, water will start flooding in. The additional purpose it will serve is that it will allow for additional entry and exit points for divers, because aside from those that were cut on the external hull, we also cut similar size holes internally between some of the tanks and compartments, so that divers can have multiple ways of traversing the vessel and getting in and out of the vessel when it's down. Final component of the sinking, as Valdemar said, we're going to be towing it for about 8 hours. It's a 40-mile journey from where it is anchored right now at Robinson Point out to Soldier Key in front of Blackbird. The vessel has never had any sort of functional propulsion steering system. So that's why we needed to ensure that we had high caliber, high powered tugs to be able to pull it. And then when we get there, we start flooding it. There are a couple of compartments that we will be using some explosives. So any kid, at least for us boys growing up, anytime we get to blow something up, that's always fun.
Not just the boys,
so
Damien.
We're gonna blow a couple holes in the bottom of it, about 6 feet in diameter, and let nature take its course from there. Our expert, Joe Weatherby out of Florida, says that he expects it to take somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4 to 5 minutes because of the size of the vessel. So you blink, you miss it, you turn away to get a drink, you might miss it. I understand that there will be an effort to try to do some live streaming of the actual sink moment. And so that's going to make for great viewing.
Yeah. Controlled explosives and
it'll be as controlled a sink as possible, because we don't want the vessel to roll or turn over in any way, because then it'll lose a lot of its appeal. We're hoping that we'll be able to get it down flat, and that the vessel is standing as upright as it possibly can. We're going down in about 80 to 100 feet of water. We did a full hydrographical survey of the area to get an idea of what the slope was. We're gonna take advantage of Joe's time in the country here over the course of this week to try to make sure we put what is the optimal position for the vessel at the location, and then we'll try to send it down as straight as possible and make it function.
And lastly, Claudio, just, we're running out of time so quickly. So Claudio, can you just tell us who's going to be able to dive there? Is this ideal for beginner level? Is this experienced diver experience? What do you think it's going to shape up to look like?
The beauty of this project is exactly this, as far as the divers side.
Yeah.
We have the way they are planning to sink, and the way where they're putting the ship, that will basically provide for everybody, from free divers to technical divers. We can go from open waters that levels, their certification levels allows them to go to 18 meters, to advanced open water, specialty divers on wreck and marine life as well, and also to tech divers, because there is a very nice wall deep enough to have all the tech divers diving the wall and then go into the wreck to do the decompression. So it's a perfect location as far as divers, and very well picked up by Valdemar and his team to get as much life as possible. I heard there was I didn't dive there yet, but I heard there's a lot of giant golias or groupers there, as well as other fish, attractive ship fishes that will make the wreck their house. So it will be an amazing sight for everybody.
It's really interesting. Well, we are out of time. It's been a lot to talk about, and definitely an exciting project. The WIT, coming soon, maybe September 21st.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us and telling us all about the work that's been taking place behind the scenes.
Thank you for having us.
All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of Madisco to tell us about their latest promotions. So stay tuned.